follow the trends. Very, very dynamic industry, very quickly to change. If you spot on some trend early on, you are in a big advantage.
Welcome to Mobile Growth and Pancakes, a podcast by StoreMaven. We break down how and why mobile apps grow. In each episode, we invite a mobile growth expert onto the show to break down a specific mobile growth strategy, how it worked, why it worked, and what they would do differently. I'm your host, Esther Shatz. Welcome to Mobile Growth and Pancakes. I'm joined today by Andrej Kugonic from Nordeus Games. Andrej, you want to introduce yourself and Nordeus a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Esther. My name is, as you said, Andrej Kugonic. I work in marketing for around now 10 years, specifically in mobile gaming for more than 5 years. Previously, I was working on some traditional brands like McDonald's, Visa, Renault, more in a media buying and planning agency. And here I was leading a user acquisition team first, so performance marketing, and then transferred to leading whole marketing team together with all the brand activities and everything else. That's in short regarding me. And regarding Nordeus, for people who don't know it, we are a developer of Top 11, Be a Football Manager. That's our flagship game, which is on the market very similar to how much experience I have in marketing, and that's around 10 years. So for full decade, which is kind of not that usual in the very young mobile gaming industry, and still being a leader in a football management category on mobile. And heavily focusing on further growing and maintaining that game, plus adding to the portfolio other successful games in especially football area. So we are based in Belgrade, Serbia. Many different nationalities, I think more than 20 we have here. So that's a great opportunity also for me to meet all those people in my hometown. So that's in short.
Awesome. I have to ask before we start diving into mobile specific, you went from marketing McDonald's, maybe one of the most old school marketing, worlds, to going into a mobile game, and also a somewhat traditional mobile game. It's not a match 3. It's not a battle royale. What was the biggest, what were some of the biggest differences going from one world of marketing into the other?
That's actually a great question. Obviously, at the end of the day, marketing is marketing, but there is a huge difference in how you approach marketing for McDonald's and for mobile game, and specifically Top 11. So I would say that what gave me an advantage in adapting is that in the last 2 or 3 years in agency, I was focusing mostly on digital marketing, which was growing at that time, and more specifically on analytics part and data-driven approach to all of that. And we can call it even performance marketing, which was still very young in Serbia. And that gave me advantage to more easily adapt to Top 11, which is obviously, as a whole mobile gaming industry, very data-driven in terms of marketing, but also gave me an opportunity to have this other side of the story, and this is brand building and how traditional big brands actually develop those brands. So I had the opportunity to learn that before Nordeus and use it when I joined. So it was a learning curve, definitely, but a very interesting one. So that's kind of in short. And I would say that there are very interesting trends visible there. When I joined from agency where McDonald's was working mostly with traditional media and very little with digital media, it was quite the opposite on Top 11, and more specifically on mobile gaming. It was almost all on digital media and performance marketing and user acquisition. But now we see the trends are kind of shifting, that those traditional brands are using more and more digital media and a performance approach in how they deal with marketing, while digital brands and mobile games tend to go more and more to some traditional media like TV, radio even, and out of home. So yeah, it's very interesting to follow all of that.
So almost in a way, you maybe came in with a little bit of advantage because brand marketing is something that isn't so natural to the world of mobile. And I think you're right. We're seeing it much more today than we saw it a few years ago. So I'll use that to transition straight into top 11. I think you know, for a long time, maybe the whole time that you've been at, you know, working with top 11, you focused on both of these sides, right? You never fully let brand building go. Can you talk me through how you began, you know, what started back in 2000, whatever it was?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the good side of that was that I must say, like, that even before I joined Nordeus, Nordeus and Top 11 was one of the pioneers in that area. Like in mobile gaming, that is a game which is on the market. It will soon be 11th birthday, actually, in 2 months. And for example, I can just give few examples that even before I joined, Top 11 took Jose Mourinho as a brand ambassador, like back in, I think, 7 or 8 years ago, which I think was one of the great steps in that moment, because when you look at the store at that time, there was a very little number of games who had such a big celebrity which completely connects to the brand great, you know, like Jose Mourinho as a most known football manager and top 11. So it really made the brand stand out, like on App Store, on Google Play Store, and then all the activations done with him on a like a yearly basis were something that didn't have as a goal user acquisition or performance marketing, like short-term goals. It was more for building a brand, and in 5 to 10 years standing out, so competitors cannot get that easily close to you. New competitors will show up. So I must say, like that. It already started in Nordeus. When I joined, like I was mostly focusing on user acquisition, as I said at the beginning. But we always had a product marketing team which was taking care of all of our partners with clubs, with brand ambassadors, doing brand activations. And I just see those two things as very complementary. So like if you have a good brand in your hands, user acquisition is much easier. While when you have a great user acquisition team and a strong growth, you will have more budgets to invest in brand. So it both spills over, and it was always like that. But throughout the years, I tried also obviously to use some of my learnings which I had from working on brands like Visa and McDonald's, and do something similar like on Top 11 in the last few years. So it was definitely a nice background to have in a company and on a game like Top 11.
I think one of the maybe the challenges when it comes to games and being able to invest in brand marketing is there's kind of a comfort that the industry's become accustomed to of immediate results. You're able to sort of set a KPI, see if your campaign is hitting that KPI, and then decide how you want to go from there. And I think for gaming specifically, because there's such a short funnel, right? And there's kind of this instantaneous, you need to get that person now. Companies are very afraid a lot of the time to invest in the kind of brand effort that you mentioned. It's a long-term investment, right? You don't see that immediate turnaround. How do you, as a game developer and as somebody who is focused on the performance and the actual, kind of ROI, how are you able to sort of prioritize and justify brand efforts without those hard numbers right behind them?
Well, one more great question, I must say, and not an easy answer. So basically, as you said, like I must double down on that. So like spend on user acquisition performance marketing is very easy in a way, because you can justify it very easily, like in a short-term metrics, but also with, predictions and the tools, I guess all good user acquisition teams have. So it's very easily representable to top management. While brand building is something that is not. So definitely we have some measurement for that, because some of the things regarding the brand building can be measured, and we usually have either ad hoc or quarterly analysis of brand metrics we want to impact. So for in countries we want to impact them, because all the mobile games are basically global games, so you need to usually focus on specific markets with brand building, and with user acquisition usually go worldwide. So then we usually have this brand service, and in those, we see before the campaign and after some big brand campaign, did we manage to impact those metrics? And obviously that's not ROI in that sense, but we do have goals and we can quantify, which is important. Did we do good? Did we not do good? And what are the learnings? But even that is not what can justify the cost. You still need to believe in brand building, because that's something which gives you big value after 3, 5, even 10 years. And if you don't believe in that in all the areas of the company, it will be very hard to justify this long-term effect you will get at the end of the journey.
It's a really good point. I think at some, first of all, I'd love to, my next question, so you can start thinking about it already, is if you can share some of the metrics that you guys use to kind of compare. But I think you still need that. It's like you said, that belief. It's not just, you're never going to see that tangible kind of, or rarely you're going to see the tangible impact of the brand in such a way that you'll always be able to justify it right away on the numbers. And you need to have some level of, we're investing in a brand. And that's, if we have a game that we expect to have a real life cycle and not kind of a short, more hyper casual style, you have to accept that. So let's go back now to the metrics that you use to measure brand.
Sure. I mean, it varied. As I said, it depends. Do we want to enter some, let's call it a new market, which we didn't penetrate so much, even in these 10 years, which definitely can happen. Then we see in which part of the funnel there is a need to impact. So, for example, it can happen in these new markets that the brand awareness just is not high enough. So we just want to make that higher. And that's usually an easier job, because you just need to make a nice campaign which will have a high reach, to make an impact, so people kind of remember our brand when they see a user acquisition ad, for example, in 1 month. The tougher job, I would say, is I can call it brand favorability. So if you want, they know your brand, and Top 11 as a brand is pretty well known in especially European markets and some other where we are present for years. And then we want to be when somebody takes this into consideration, the first choice, in their mind, comparing to our competitors, and to improve that part of the funnel. So that's kind of a tougher job. We then usually think about, do we want to differentiate comparing to those competitors and have one of the many brand metrics which we can impact much higher than them where they are weak, or we actually want to take the battle on a metric where they are high and to get on those high levels or even higher. So that's kind of usually a decision we need to make. The impact on brand metrics is not that, if you're going to talk about numbers, is not something that grows very quickly. It's usually those goals are usually 10% relative increase, 15%, 20%. It can hardly happen that you have much higher increase in a short period, because, as I said, that's marathon, basically. You need to do it for years in a good way and to nurture the brand. There is a lot of traditional brands with great examples like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Apple, who basically with their brand solely are maintaining the top positions.
I think that's, first of all, I think it's interesting you touched on kind of these two methodologies you have with competitors, which is Do you go for where you know you're strong and they're weak and really emphasize that, versus do you go after where they're strong and kind of enhance yourself that way? What kind of decision, what's the difference in how you actively enact that strategy? When do you decide? What's an example of when you would decide to go, let's say, after something that they're doing really well in?
I mean, usually like all the decisions around brand are more of a longer term strategy. So like it's not like we are deciding each quarter. Like we usually approach that with first proper research done, and all the things we can gather around our brand and around competitors' brand. Look at the year to 3 years in advance and see what are the maybe opportunities where we can do this. And basically on those strategy meetings, we decide which strategic approach to take, and then on regarding the tactics, we dive deeper on a quarterly level or on a yearly level. But this is usually a decision which is made on a longer period of time.
And how do you see, when we look at these two efforts of brand and UA, so we're saying basically you have to make sure you have performance, you have to make sure you have brand. How do they work together? Is it the same team? Do you share KPIs? Are you completely separate and just benefiting off each other's work?
So basically, they definitely need to work together, but the connection is not that tight. It's not like they need to work on an everyday level. So we have, for example, in Nordeus, a user acquisition team, which consists out of user acquisition managers responsible for media buying, analysis, and everything else. And we have a creative team, which makes all the ads, which we know it's tons of ads you need to have today to make user acquisition work on a sustainable level. And then we have a product marketing team, which is basically people who are responsible for the brand itself. And why is it important that they work together is because we also think about when making a UA ads that we don't go beyond the brand boundaries. We have some limits. Obviously, user acquisition ads as itself, they are performance ads. So they will be more performance and not on that level of quality when we make some brand activations and videos, but they need to be in some boundaries. And we can definitely see in the industry, this is not happening consistently, even with some big companies. So this is something we really want to nurture. And then there are some small tweaks also to try to show brand in the UA ad, as much as we can. So we share awareness also through ads, because outside of high number of registrations we get through UA, we have also tons of millions and billions of impressions. So, and then on the other side, as I said, product marketing team is definitely the one which is taking care of the partnerships, of the brand ambassadors, brand activations, big bits in the year. This year, this will be definitely the summer of football. And they definitely work together, but not as the same team on an everyday level.
I think you have a really important point there, and we see it actually even unintentionally, which is that performance ads have a branding effect, right? Like they are speaking towards your brand. And I mean, we see it sometimes. I'll look at when you reduce spend, for example, on a specific campaign, suddenly you notice that the search volume for your brand, the number of people who are searching for the brand name, goes down alongside your spend. So there's there's a branding effect for sure. And if you're ignoring the brand side and only focusing on the performance, it goes back to that short term. You're getting maybe the right CPI for a little bit of time, but what are you doing long term, and how is that impacting long term?
Yes. Maybe one interesting example is this TV campaigns we had recently. This kind of connected these teams very much, because TV as a medium and channel kind of has a very strong effect can have a very strong effect in registration uplifts, but also in brand building. So, and it's completely different how you approach that channel comparing to Facebook, Google, or whatever video network you do user acquisition usually. So this was actually a channel where everybody in marketing like needed to work very tightly together, so we kind of squeeze the best out of it in terms of results.
I'd love to drill into this TV campaign a bit further because we talked about it before the call. So many games don't see the results that they'd want to see from TV. How do you guys approach a TV campaign in a way that you see as profitable?
Yeah. So, I mean, TV, if you look, I think the most important thing is how you actually at the beginning approach TV. So I think that for really low number of games, low percentage of games, it can work as a user acquisition channel. So like if companies are looking at it just from a performance side and checking how many registrations it brought and then what's the lifetime value of those registrations and counting, again, ROI only on that side, which is like a completely user acquisition approach, I think it will not work for many companies. But that's one thing. And if you take a look the other way, and that's to bring actually definitely registration, that should be one of the main goals, but also that those TV ads are made in a different way comparing to standard performance user acquisition ads on digital, then you can definitely build in those specific markets where you run TV campaigns a long-lasting brand effect, much better than you do with user acquisition channels. So if you combine those two teams who are working on user acquisition and brand and set goals in both areas and make something which can work in both ways, I think that the end value can be justified. But if you look at it only in one of those two areas, it will not work. And definitely, this is definitely, I think, the approach which can bring value, and especially if you tie it up with some bigger campaigns. So it doesn't need to be an ongoing channel like you do with, I don't know, Facebook or like any other. This can be used in a specific moments of the year where you have some big releases in the game, or you have some big external events which basically connect to your brand great. Like for example, for football games, that's Euro Cup, World Cup, or anything like it. And then you can have the value you want outside of it. And definitely, you must approach making these TV ads much differently than you do in on digital, how you make them for Facebook or YouTube or whatever.
So how do you connect? I think it's a really good point that you can't, if you're relying on TV as its own channel in and of itself, you're probably not going to see the results that you want to see. How do you use UA to enhance that effect? How does that, maybe you can give us an example of when you ran TV, what was the next step for UA? How did it complement that effort?
So there is definitely one effect which always happens is when you run TV in some country, you in 90+% of cases see a positive impact on digital metrics. So on click-through rates, on conversion rates, because you basically share awareness on TV as a channel, and then when people see it on digital channels, they are easier to convert or to click on your ad. So this is, let's call it a side effect, which is always good to see. And I think it happens, it's especially visible on, for example, Google search ads or on Apple search ads, because you drive demand. On the other side, you can go a step ahead, let's say it like that. And you can try, if you especially have some big placements that you know that you're going to be in some really like time slot on TV, which is very, very visible and has a high reach, you can make some stronger user acquisition push around that period. So like a half hour before, half hour, especially after. So these are some small, let's say, tactics which you can use, which can definitely bring a better effect. But I would say like that the one which always happens is this first, which I mentioned, that you basically see this multi-channel spillover once you launch TV as still, I think, the biggest channel and mass media channel there is.
I think one of the things that you mentioned as well is an app like Top 11, because it connects to something real world. It's not just happening within the world of the game. You're connecting to actual, I say soccer because I'm American, but actual football, soccer world. How do you look at events like that, offline events? Especially I'm thinking about this year with COVID, when suddenly games didn't occur as usual, and then they start resuming after a period of time. Is that something that you're taking? How do you create a strategy around that? How do you function when you're not in control of all of the events that impact your game?
So basically, COVID is a really big topic, and it made us, from one side, big mess last year, because we obviously had a lot of plans, like for the summer, like Euro Cup was planned. We already have that in progress, and a lot of other things which we needed to basically cancel. But on the other side, as probably everybody in mobile gaming knows, it actually did good on the business side, because people stayed at home. Well, a lot of entertainment were closed and are still, cinema and other stuff. And basically, mobile gaming grew. People started playing more, spending more, and basically for user acquisition, it was definitely a good period. But for us, for any branding activation, it was a really challenging period because a lot of external events were kind of postponed or completely canceled. And what we were discussing a lot is actually trying to replace somehow on our especially social media channels this football gap, because we had a few months without football, and Top 11 is one of the biggest football brands there is. And we tried with our big social media. I know we have 14 million fans on Facebook, to try to give them something football related when there is no football in the world, which they can fill the gap at least a little. So that's kind of the thing we try to do in this period with the football gap. And now there is football, but there is no fans. So still not ideal. But now it's, let's say, easier because football is again in our lives. And I hope it will be also during this summer with the Euro Cup and CONCACAF and other big football tournaments.
Do you think that all games and all genres can benefit from brand marketing, or is there a set of kind of, let's put hyper casual aside for a second and let's look at, just games maybe that don't have this off-world presence, that don't necessarily have a natural fit for, you guys had, it's funny because I don't watch soccer and I'm not going to pretend to, but even I know that Top 11 is a big app that connects with soccer because you see it everywhere, right? Like the logos are on jerseys when players are playing. Do you think that there's a set of criteria that a game should meet in order to consider this kind of brand marketing? Or do you think there's a way for any developer to capitalize on it?
That's a great question. I didn't think that much about it. For Top 11, this was definitely, as you said, a big opportunity, because you can just connect. We sponsored jerseys, as you said, for Stoke when they were in Premier League. We have Jose Mourinho. We had World Cup campaign with Del Bosque and Scolari. So we can easily connect to external events, which is always great. But there are also many great examples in the industry which done it properly and not only increased the performance of their user acquisition campaigns or whatsoever, but they, I think, benefited a lot when they were sold, from the value of their brand. And I think especially games in a category which relates more to younger audiences, especially to kids, are a huge opportunity to do a great branding, because then you can, make movies, sell merchandise, for those kids, where I'm also having a daughter, and when she sees some cartoon or game, I need to buy a toy which has that, either Dora or Frozen character or whatever. So I think definitely there are games to answer that have a higher opportunity in that area, and games which have lower opportunity. But I think that every game or every brand can develop it, and there is opportunity for everybody. For some, it's just bigger and maybe even easier. For some, it's tougher and with maybe not that high value as for some. But for every game, especially the successful game, which has a great user acquisition growth curve, and in terms of revenue, part of the budget can be devoted and efforts to that, and it will definitely bring value.
Yeah, I guess there's the example of the first one that comes to mind is Angry Birds, which was able to create the offline brand and the movies and everything after the game picked up and after that was that's a good point. Okay, one more question for me before we start the quick fire round is just in terms of, Top 11 is about to celebrate its 11-year anniversary. How do you, in a world like mobile gaming where the funnel is sometimes incredibly quick, the competition is through the roof, the market is so saturated, the idea of continuing growth after 10 years of growth plans is a whole topic in and of itself that I'm sure many, many people would be interested in. But from your perspective, especially looking at this combination of the brand work that you've built until now and the UA that you're doing, how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep growth as something that continues?
Yeah, good question. I mean, this is definitely, and I didn't mention this so far, which is extremely important connection, and that's product itself, and people working on the product and marketing, because at the end of the day, without great stuff done on the product itself, it's impossible to keep anything fresh from a marketing side. So I think looking at Top 11 in the last few years, what we done in the game is really, I'm here for 5 years, but it's really a lot, and I think users loved it. We had the friendly championships, we had the special sponsors with some specific challenges. We are constantly working on live events to keep it fresh, to keep it live, and I think trying to connect with real life football. Also, all of those events, putting real clubs so you can play against real clubs, and connected to this big. We had 2 years ago World Cup, also edition in Top 11. So I think that's really important. And then marketing can take all of that and build upon, with some great campaigns, with some brand activations, with obviously a lot of work done on user acquisition creatives, refreshing them. Teasing people in a different way. So it's basically you need, especially as you said, in the industry, which is I would say having so many great games, and competition is so high, not just in terms of how many games there are, but how many money do they have to invest. You really need to be top of the game all the time, from product side and then from marketing side. So basically, you need to nail both of them to actually then celebrate 11th birthday in a healthy environment, and then potentially 20th or whatever later on. And that's it. And the brand itself, which we are speaking about, is developed from the game itself through marketing then. So you really need to do a good job on all fronts. And it's not an easy, it's a lot of effort and a lot of good decision you need to make to do that.
Agreed. Product first, and then everything else follows. I think a lot of companies sometimes, especially when you have a huge budget to throw around, you can do that amazing, powerful launch and you can shoot to the top of the charts, but to be able to stay there requires more. You can't rely on marketing to do all that for you.
Definitely.
All right. You ready for quick fire? Fast questions.
Yes.
Here we go. Okay.
Let's go.
First of all, if you could give just one tip to somebody who's looking to break into mobile growth marketing, what would it be?
One tip only. Well, follow the trends. Very, very dynamic industry, very quickly to change. If you spot on some trend early on, you are in a big advantage. So that's
good one. Your favorite mobile growth resource?
Favorite mobile growth resource? Let's say, well, I don't have one answer here. There is so many, like where I like try to gather like the knowledge, but the most I get from network itself, from people. So like that's my biggest resource, like speaking with people and experts in different groups, or hopefully soon enough on conferences.
Which brings me to my next question, which is hopefully we're going back to maybe being able to seeing people soon. We both live in countries where vaccination's actually happening and all. When you get to go back out in the real world, who is the person in the industry that you'd most want to take out for lunch and why?
Oof, that's a big question. That's a really big question. Let's see. There is so much, like, because I didn't see anybody for more than a year. So, I mean, like, there is so much, but if I would to name one person, that can be like travel to maybe USA and then going in San Francisco with our friend, former colleague from Nordeus, Nebojša Radović, Nebo, on a lunch. So that would be awesome. Especially in San Francisco, I must mention. Not here.
As long as lunch happens there.
I want to travel, that's it.
You can do a in-flight lunch. I'll allow it. Yeah. Okay, most important question. What is your favorite type of pancake?
My favorite type of, this is an easy one. My favorite type of pancake is protein pancakes.
Oh, nice. Very healthy.
So I am making them often.
Amazing. Andrej, where can people find you if they want to learn more, hear more about what you're doing?
Well, like in person, I'm here in Serbia, Belgrade based, or hopefully like soon enough on some conferences. But other than that, I think LinkedIn is the best place like to connect on a professional level. Like there is a lot of Slack societies and everything, but LinkedIn is something where we can always speak, and I'm very open for connecting and networking and discussing some topics with people from the industry.
Right, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today and for all the insights, and excited to celebrate the 11th birthday for Top 11 from afar.
Thanks, Esther. We are also excited, and let's keep it going.
And that was Mobile Growth and Pancakes. To find out more about StoreMaven and how we can improve App Store performance, visit storemaven.com. And then make sure to search for Mobile Growth and Pancakes in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at StoreMaven, thanks for listening.